Okay, now we have the air cleaner assemblies off. We can see the top of the engine a lot easier. Starting with the carburetor first. The carburetors, they're all going to be stamped on the front here if it's an original one. Let's use this 68 one as an example. It's a dash AA. It's a 4-speed. 884 is the date code. 68, 8th month, 4th week on here. All of these carburetors, not just Cobra Jets, but a lot of different applications, use this spacer or gasket. This is between the air cleaner assembly and the carburetor. So this goes on the top here. You can see it's fairly thick, so it's going to make a difference on how that whole air cleaner assembly sits. Red side faced up on these. These were a C5ZZ number originally. There's also a spacer. So the spacer is this here. It's different for 70. So 68 and 69, you're going to have a spacer and 2 gaskets right under here, each carburetor. And in 70, the difference is the PVC comes off of that spacer. We'll get to that in a second. But you want to make sure that you put that. Again, it makes a height difference. Ford designed it that way, so you want to make sure that you put that back there. The carb solenoid, this is an interesting thing. On this 70 automatic with air conditioning, they want this carb solenoid on here. And the reason, to me, what that reason is when you enable the air conditioning, this is going to bump up the idle because there's going to be a draw on the engine, and it could stall out without that. Throttle brackets and return springs. Show you here, this is an interesting little tidbit. This is an original 68 throttle bracket. So this goes on here like this. These are made and formed. You can see that goes in there, and it goes in there nicely and stays. They make a reproduction. It looks different than this, but the original assembly lines units looked like that. The color is like a blue-gray on this spring. The replacements were black, but the assembly line original ones were a blue-gray. So they changed each year. 68 was done this way. Then 69 has this bracket on the back of the carburetor, so it mounts underneath the carb stud and nuts right there. You could see it coming across the bottom like that. And then this spring here, that color spring till about April of 69. Then they moved to a yellow spring, and you could see the yellow spring here into 70. And again, this changed completely again. So you have this is now for the throttle cable, comes through here, and the spring attaches to that. So 3 years, 3 different designs for that. The coils and the coil brackets. So the coils themselves are going to be dated. They're ink stamped on the tops. This one here is a good example. I ink stamped this one. Basically repainted it, filled in the dents, and put an ink stamp on, just like the original 8JAB. 8 is the year, J is the month, A is the week, B is the shift. Would decode that way. There's 2 different brackets for the coils that were used, and show you that here. They both notch in the same way, so they have this flat spot here and here. This one, where you can see the rails, like that, versus the other one, no rails. And what we believe, just recently got into this, is that some people provided examples in 68, this was used, but 69, 70, you wouldn't see that. So, interesting. They fit in there easily. Both of them, but I think the rails are more predominantly 68. The other thing with the coil bracket, the coil itself, We've got examples here, the coil. Original coils, they make reproductions. They don't look like this. They have a mold number there between the two terminals. That's unique for an original one. You see this one here as well, 4D. But the orientation, the factory assembly manuals, you can see better on this one. This is the way they want it oriented, like that, with the terminals over here. So interesting, because you can, obviously you can turn it different ways, but that's the way that they wanted it originally. Yeah, engine ID tag also that you can see under there. They positioned it that way. Moving along, spark plug wires. All the spark plug wires on these Cobra Jets are going to be the same. They have these protective sleeves on here. So the sleeve right here, because of the thermactor tubes, smog tubes. So all the 68, 69, and 70 are going to be the same. They're dated on here. So this example here, this is fourth quarter of 67. That's what that looks like. Give you another example here, fourth quarter of 68. You can see right there. And here's what originals look like. These are assembly line original spark plug wires. The boots are different. The printing on them kind of give you an idea what that looks like. They're all numbered 1 through 8, so you could see that one goes to the number 1 spark plug. Okay, so spark plug wires, vacuum hoses. The vacuum hoses, 68, they are solid vacuum hoses. These are not produced today. You can see a solid yellow, solid green, solid red, as opposed to what 69 and 70 more commonly see, they're MX marked hoses. So that's the difference between 68, 69, and 70. Valve covers, here's the first generation of valve covers up until February of 69. They're the chrome valve covers. 68 typically don't have a date on them. 69 does have a date. You can see that stamped in there. And then they switched to the aluminum finned valve covers. They look like that. And then there's another version late in production. Different theories as to whether these came on the cars originally or not. My preference is to have the ones without the 428 Cobra Jet on there, but I do think that that's just a preference. I do think that some cars could have come with these originally, so I don't want to rule that out. Okay, moving along. The PCV system changed from 68 to 69 to 70. So 68, 69 is basically the same. You can see here you have the tube like this here, comes around. This is an original hose. In the back of the PVC system here. The original hose you're going to see has this texture on it. And they could be, often you'll see these painted with the engine, so it'll be the same color, blue. We have an original one over here. You can see some blue overspray on this one. So again, looks like this. And then 70 totally changed. 70, you don't have those tubes anymore. See, all that's gone. On 70, what you have is a much simpler system. The back of the carburetor, the spacer, it connects to. You have a clamp there, and then this hose comes here. So I copy this off an original hose, the engineering number. No clamp on the end. So you'll notice no clamp on the end of any of these. Clamp is always on the other side. So where the PVC is, it's the other side that's clamped. So I have pictures here of this original one. You would think they would clamp it here, but we don't see anything that shows that. at least from what I've seen. And then moving along, oh, the vacuum pieces. The vacuum pieces on the back here. So this looks like this. On the back of the 68, 69, what they did is they then, after it's painted, they put one of these on. It depends on the options the car had, would dictate how many ports you need, and they kind of look like this. Here's a collection of different ones, like this, and these were made by Weatherford. Weatherford supplied a lot of things to Ford. You could see their symbol there, and which other one? Right here, if we could zoom in on that. So they were a supplier for years. You'll see them on all kinds of different pieces on the car. Temp sender, the original one. You could maybe see with the red insulator on there, that's typical. The distributor numbers are going to be on the back. In the article I have pictures on it. Auto light on the cap. If you could see that down between the spark plug wires, molded in there. Let's see if we could see that here too. Down there, you can see that pretty good. The vacuum advance, this is a 4-speed style like this. And then this is a style for an automatic like that. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up on the top side here is the routing of the fuel line. I've seen this routed because you could route it this way or this side here if you really wanted to, I guess if you really tried. It's the fuel line is going to come up here between the distributor and the coil through here, and then you're going to have a short hose that connects the carb inlet to the fuel line, and there's clamps on there. Those clamps look like these pinch clamps. These are originals with numbers on them, but that's what they look like. I don't have the hose and the clamps on there because I got to take this off to drop the engine in. But yeah, that's top part of the engine, and we'll move along here. We'll cover the smog system next. All right, the smog system. So all of these came with a smog system on there, Thermactor system they call it. What that does is you have tubes here that are injecting air into the engine again to cut down on emissions. And a couple things to point out here. The first thing you'll notice is this is the reproduction hose that's on the front. If you have one of these, they're all wrong because it has the wrong engineering number on it. So I could put that there as a comparison. I made stamps to make this look like an original one. So the original one, you have an original assembly line one here. You can see the engineering number C90E 9B466A, and all of these have the wrong number on it. Also the date code, this here is a 07 July 2767, which I get, you know, it's in the beginning, but once you get into a 69 and 70, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a hose from the factory that was 2 or 3 years old that was going to go on there. So I just prefer to be more accurate to restamp these, and that makes more sense. C9 is for 69 and 70, and then there was a C8 as well, which here we have on the 68. The smog pump. Well, the smog pump is an interesting thing. You can get questions about that. So the smog pump is one of the things that's on these engines that Ford did not make. The smog pump, which I have a NOS one here, is made by this company, GM. So GM, they had a division, Saginaw, that made all of these. So GM was supplying the smog pumps to Ford to put on all of these cars. And a couple things. You'll see this green. Try to replicate that here. Let's see, this one here is right in front of us. So a little bit of green here. It doesn't mean that every single one had green on it, but for our purposes, I've seen a lot of cars restored. Sometimes they put it on real heavy, but this is just to show the way an original untouched Smog pump, what it looked like. And when they sold this as a service Smog pump, came with these instructions. And then what you had to do, which is pretty interesting, is these relief valves that are here on the side, it came with a bag of different colored relief valves, and you had to install it accordingly. So what you got was all these different ones. And Cobra Jets used a blue one, but yeah, this is how they were sold. So they weren't just used only on Mustangs, but I think this is a really trick piece to have. And it looks really good when they're restored correctly. So that's the unit there. They're all going to be date coded right here, which on a Cobra Jet is going to be really, really visible. 9D, it says 9D14, which is 1969, April 14th, first shift. And while we're there, you can also see the tag back here. These are the engine ID tags, the stickers. Most of the reproductions have a L on them. All of them do, actually. So I made this stamp, and I made this tag here to be more correct. So L was for the Lima plant. None of these engines were made in the Lima plant. So that makes it more accurate to have that on there. The OK stamp, I missed that before. See that on the valve covers. You see that one there as well. And yeah, so for the Smog system, the rest of it, you have the thermactor tubes on the other side. Part of the Smog system, I'm going to say, is this switch that's on the thermostat housing. So this is really just, the only purpose here is really for emissions to have this on here. It doesn't do anything else. The engine runs fine without it. But the way these were, they have kind of a goldish color to them. The plating on there, this is brass. And then what we'd want to see typically is a little bit of blue. So this was masked off, and you see a little bit of blue on the bottom. The best I can do when I'm restoring one of these is I'm painting that, because you can't plate these. Tried plating it, doesn't work out. So just 99% of them the way I see them. Let's see, do we have some here? Well, no, we don't have that, but most of them, people just blast them and put them back on. But it'd be nice, you just spend the extra time to paint that and, you know, show that line there right here from the engine color. Looks really good. And then the thermostat housings right here, I have a couple loose. And again, the orientation of this, the assembly drawings for the engine show it like this. You don't want to be turning this and having this, you know, pointing this way or front or back. It's going to be, they specifically wanted it to be exactly like that. That's the placement of it. And then these all have a C8 AE number on them. They're date coded in the front there. You can see that one's a 69. They have a month date. This one's also 69. See, this is a later one. This is a 72. You can see that. But that's the originals on there.